Awesome. So today's training, I know it's not going to be super difficult for you guys, but it's one of those things that if you aren't familiar with it, you need to be, because it's like in the inception of rentals, especially, you're going to be doing a lot of these and seeing a lot of these. So it's very important to understand it and not to shy away from it. I think what happens is a lot of agents come in brand new and it's something different, and then they don't want to bother people or make it seem like they don't know, so they just don't take the time to learn it. So I appreciate that you guys are here today to get a hold of the contract to lease. And as far as the way I teach it in a way where hopefully it's easy for you to understand. And also I'm going to go through uh some of the most common mistakes that a lot of the agents make along the way with the contract to lease. So it's going to give you guys some good insight, hopefully, and you'll be able to then move along and feel comfortable with the contract to lease. So that's the hopes for today's training. I'm also at some point going to bring on somebody from New World Title, and they're going to explain the deposit process, because I think that's another thing that agents sort of get a little bit lost with is, okay, I've got a tenant. I know that there's a deposit process in place. What does that look like? So hopefully these are things that we're going to be jumping into today. And if at any point you have any questions, on the chat, I believe there's a thing where you can like raise your hand, but pretty much you could just unmute yourself and just stop me and say, hey, I got a question real quick. I will try to stop like every 3 sections on the contract to lease to give you time to catch up with at least the first 3 topics that I go over. So you'll also have time to catch up and ask the question. Sound good? Okay. So what time do we have? It's 2:02. Let's give it one more minute, see if we get anyone else on. Sometimes people get the links and they're just trying to get on their phone, or are you guys currently the ones logged in? Are you any of you in the middle of a lease or of a contract to lease? No? Okay. All right, perfect. So at least now, again, you'll have a good understanding. I'm going to share my screen here. So give me a second. Let me see. Can someone tell me if they see the contract to lease up on the screen? Is that, yeah? Okay. Keep in mind, again, everybody's muted. So if you're responding, just unmute yourself real quick so I can hear you. All right. Let me go back to this now. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get started because this should take all of about 30 minutes maybe. So if you could get yourself to a place where you'll be good for about 30 minutes, that's pretty much what it's gonna take. First, before we even get into the contract to lease, does everybody know how I even got to this form right here where it's the sample? Does everybody know? Okay, I see a few no's. So all you got to do is go to lircloud.com, okay, and you're going to see our most frequently used forms. And I'm going to go ahead and let me see. I'm going to go onto that now. See if I can look it up with you while you're here. Okay, everybody see this? The website? You're just going to go where it says Forms Florida. And then your popular forms, we have samples of all the things that you use most frequently. One of those is called the CTL, which is contract to lease. And that's how I got to opening the contract to lease. So now you guys know how to find that. Again, it's lircloud.com. Go to Florida Forms and then go down to your contract to lease sample so that at least you have a sample of it. This is not where you fill it out. This is where you get a sample of a go by of what it should look like. Okay. Everybody get that? All right. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the contract to lease now. All right. Contract to lease. I think some of the confusion with new agents is this the lease? Is this the whole thing? No, it's not. This is basically you're representing a tenant, and then you're taking the time to put in an offer to a listing agent that has the listing on the rental side. So you're basically filling this out, okay? And this is like your preliminary offer to the property. So this is not the official long lease that you will eventually sign. This is the preliminary offer. Does everybody understand that? Okay, perfect. The other thing is that the contract to lease is not something that is always done. I'm going to tell you why. There's times where you're going to show a tenant a property and it's a Thursday afternoon, let's say, and the tenancy is going to start on a Saturday because it's vacant, it's available. Your tenant needs to get in this weekend. You guys can go straight to a lease. Okay, so it's not a prerequisite that you have to have a contract to lease. I think that's also something that's a little misconstrued. Now, if it's more than a day, day and a half, I would say just do the contract to lease to have your initial offer accepted. And especially if you want to do something quick to send to the listing agent so you get something accepted in writing. However, it's not necessary. Now, I say that with a little bit of caution. I don't want you to make a habit of not doing a contract to lease because you have a lease that's coming up in 2 days and you feel comfortable that they're going to send you a lease. Keep in mind, if you do that, we're leaving the listing agent basically in charge of what's going to happen with your client because you have nothing signed. So I could be a listing agent and say, hey, I'm going to send you a full lease, start on Saturday, and now you're chasing me to try to get this lease. So if you want to be sure that your client is going to lock in the lease, just do the contract to lease. If you feel comfortable that this person is saying, yeah, no, for sure, I'm sending it to you today, we'll get it signed today, effective for Saturday, I don't have a problem with that. But just keep in mind that if you do that, okay, you are at the mercy of the speed in which the listing agent is going to get that lease back to you. Okay, do we understand that? Perfect. All right, so let's jump into the contract to lease. Okay, contract to lease, section number 1, parties, is self-explanatory. You have a landlord, you have a tenant. Okay, a lot of times, actually all the time, what I do is I go onto the property appraiser, and whoever the owner of record is, I put. Now keep in mind, sometimes there's a delay with recording a sale of a property, so it may still have the old owner. So always verify who the landlord of the property is with the listing agent. Okay, if the listing agent says that the landlord is Marco Hernandez, but then you go onto property appraiser and the actual owner is George Canciobello, okay, to protect yourself, what I would do is I would just say, hey, can you give me a copy of the most recent sale, whether it's the Alta with some things crossed out or whatever, just proving that Marco Hernandez is the new owner, because it's still showing as George Canciobello. Okay, because we definitely don't want to get caught in a place where now we're paying the landlord and it's not even the real landlord. And if you don't think that happens, it does. Because everybody knows that family thinks that because someone in their family owns it, they own it. And that's not always the case. So let's make sure we're clear on who the owner is. Okay, on the same section, the second one is the tenant. Okay, you want to put in there whoever the tenant of the property is going to be, that's going to be the primary tenant of this property. Okay, so if, let's say my wife and I are going to rent a property and you're representing me, it's okay to put my name there. And then on section number 3, you're going to see a thing that it says additional tenant. You can put my wife's name on that one. Okay, that's okay. That's not, nothing's going to go wrong if you did that. And likewise, nothing's going to go wrong if you put my name and my wife's name in that section as well. So just keep that in mind. So that's your tenant that goes into that section. Now it says here that they agree to execute a lease no later than, and then they have a blank where it says lease execution date, which is right here. For the most part, what I like to do, and it's a tactic that Rick Garcia taught me in Pines, and I love it, is that if I get a rental, okay, I write this contract to lease and I put that the lease has to be executed within 72 hours. So it gives the listing agent 72 hours to send me back a full lease, okay, to lock in the property. This happens because of one of two reasons. The reason why it's a 72-hour window that I give them is because when it comes to deposits, and I'll have Mel come here in a second if she's not already on. When it comes to deposits, we can go through New World Title. There is a process to that. And also we can collect our portion of the lease. So let's say in this case, the lease was $1,000 a month. You as the agent, you're going to make 500. The other agent's going to make 500. So what I do is that I'll tell my tenant to write me a check to Lifestyle International Realty for $500. And then I can deposit that as long as I have the lease executed within 72 hours. And the reason that we can deposit that is because it's commissions earned. Okay, it goes in as commissions earned to the file. Now, Lifestyle International Realty, we can't collect escrow deposit. So let's say the listing agent says, no, I don't want to do it that way, with them giving you your portion of the commission for Lifestyle to hold as commissions earned. We'd rather do it through the traditional escrow deposit through a title company. Well, then in that case, you're going to be utilizing a title company, more than likely New World or whoever's going to be available to hold that escrow. So let me see if I got Mel here on the line. Mel, are you there?
Hi, everyone. Yes, I am.
All right, amazing. So Mel, we're actually just getting into the escrow deposit for a rental. I'm explaining to them that I can take it as commissions earned and therefore forego the title company having to hold it. But in the case that that doesn't happen, can you just tell us your process today?
Of course. Hi, everyone. I'm Mel. I'm with Lifestyle Title of New World. And like he said, sometimes you do come across agents that, are very particular when it comes to someone holding the escrow. So should you come across that situation on section 2 where it says deposit, I'm going to put it in the chat. That's what you would put on the deposit line, Lifestyle Title of New World. And then you would go ahead and email your signed contract once it's executed. You'd have to email that signed contract over to this email address below. There's a process to it. Once you email us the contract, we'll give you wiring instructions, or if not, money order instructions, so that you can go ahead and deposit that into our Miami Lakes office or Coral Gables branch. And then when it comes down to requesting the checks for the walkthrough, you are more than welcome to contact me directly. Save my number, and I can guide you through the whole process in regards to requesting the disbursement form and just showing you step by step how to make sure that you guys get your checks ready for the walkthrough date. Okay. There is one portion of working with Lifestyle Title of New World that I do like to inform all new agents. We do charge a $50 fee for using the title company. That fee is basically used for the title company to process and hold the funds. So when it comes to my clients, I have two options. You can either deduct the $50 fee from your commission, or you inform your client, hey, listen, we do have to place the funds in escrow. They do charge a $50 fee to hold and process your funds. So just add that onto the deposit. So like he was saying, if the deposit's $1,000, then it would be $1,050. Again, as your in-house title company, once you start closing more files and once you start closing sales or purchases, that $50 fee is waived for you as an agent. Any questions?
So Mel, I have a question, just so I'm sure that maybe some haven't even thought of it down the line. But I have two questions actually. The first one, you mentioned depositing in Miami Lakes or Coral Gables. Now, for agents that are north, the wire seems like it would be the better way to go, correct? Like if you're somewhere, you don't want to drive an hour to drop it off, or you don't want to send your client, the wire would be the better way. When they are going to be giving wire instructions, is it best for the client to contact New World or for the agent to contact New World?
When it comes to the wiring instructions, you as an agent will let us know, Mel, I have a client that's ready for the wiring. Can you please send me instructions? I'll go ahead and send you instructions. We have instructions in English and in Spanish. And once your client has those instructions, they can take it to their local bank and they'll follow the whole procedures. They will ask for a code in which they can contact myself or the New World number. Primarily just use me as point of contact. It's a lot faster.
Correct. And the wire also can be done online, I believe, through their banking, online banking.
Yes, it can be done online. It just depends on your client and how comfortable they are with doing the wiring exchange on their own, or if they just prefer to have a teller or something get it done.
Amazing. And being that you're the in-house title company for lifestyle, and you mentioned that when the agents start closing, what's the prerequisite for that? Is it a sale? Is it a few rentals? When does the $50 fee to the agents get dropped?
Once you start doing sales or purchases on single family homes or any sort of purchase, then that's going to be a royalty for us that we basically waive the $50 fee moving forward for all of your transactions.
Okay, perfect. And then lastly, the rental or the disbursement authorization, because guys, if you don't realize it, when the escrow deposit goes to New World, we have to supply them with a disbursement authorization to take that money back out when you're about to do your closing and go to walkthrough. How many days, Mel, is good for these agents to give you with that form in order to get the check back to them?
I always inform my clients it's best to do, or the agents, it's best to do 3 days before. So if you know that the walkthrough is going to get done, let's say on the 15th, I would already be requesting it as of the 11th or the 12th, the latest.
Okay, great. Mel, thank you so much. Anyone have any questions? You could just unmute yourself real quick and ask her so we can let her go because I know she's super busy. Anyone? Okay, well, Mel, you did a fabulous job. Thank you for jumping in with us. And
Welcome, you guys.
and go get them.
Save my number and happy Friday.
All righty. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, awesome. Okay, so that's great insight from our in-house title girl, Mel. As a manager, what I see a lot is that agents lose track of that date of when they got to ask for that escrow deposit. So if they have a walkthrough tomorrow, Saturday, they're calling me like today and saying, hey, I forgot and I need this check cut. Guys, please, please, please pay attention to the dates of your contract to lease and your lease so that you can ask for the money well in advance so that you're not at the last minute and 11th hour trying to get a check out, because chances are it's just not going to make it. So give yourself, she says 3-4 days. Hey, be over with that. I would say 5 days, send it. And then on day 4, which is the next day, follow up. That's my advice. Okay. Any questions with that process? That was process number 2 on the contract to lease. Okay, we're gonna move on. So again, I give them the 72 hours for the contract to lease, or yeah, the lease, I'm sorry, the executed lease to come back to me as the tenant's agent. What I would suggest there as well is that you just make sure that they're the ones that are going to prepare the lease. In most instances, the listing agent is going to prepare the lease for the landlord. So they'll go ahead and take care of, you know, executing and filling out the lease for you guys to sign. So that's how that process works. So your job is the contract to lease, collect a deposit from your client, and then wait on the executed or the lease to come back for you guys to sign it. All right. 1 month rent is the typical deposit. Again, that can be negotiated. And sometimes when market rents are really high and hot, there's people that say, hey, we want to give 2 months deposit instead of 1, just to try to, you know, go to the top of the bunch when there's a lot of offers. So that can change, but typically is 1 month rent. Okay. Section number 3 is the property address of the property that's in question, or what you guys are renting. That's self-explanatory. Whether the property is going to be furnished or unfurnished, again, self-explanatory. And if you're doing additional tenants. Now, under additional tenants, if you've got a husband and wife and 2 kids, you don't have to put the juveniles' names, but you can put 2 juvenile, you know, 2 juveniles or 2 toddlers, whatever, just to add it in there. Okay. Section number 4 is your lease term. That's the date that it's going to start. And obviously the end date is the date it's going to end. We have to put physical dates to this. I've seen new agents fill this out and put it's going to begin on, and then they put ASAP, and then it's going to end on a year later. That doesn't work. It's got to be physical dates on the contract to lease. Let me pause for a second, and if somebody can unmute and just make sure that I'm being heard okay, and that my volume's good.
Volume's great.
Okay, perfect. So any questions to this point? Okay, awesome. You guys are a great group here. All right, money due before occupancy. What they're talking about here is they're talking about rent only. So in some cases where a landlord and a listing agent put on the MLS, there's a cleaning fee, there's a pet fee, or any other fees that are non-related to rent, that does not go as part of the sum in that blank space. All that goes in there are rents or monthly rents. Now deposit is included in there, but no other fees like cleaning or pet, etc. Okay. So you just basically add up your 3 months of rent if it's first last security, and that's what goes in that parentheses. If you're renting for $1,000 a month, 3,000 goes into that area right there. Okay. All right. First month's rent plus applicable taxes. Taxes are going to come into play if you're doing a seasonal rental or if your tenant is looking for a seasonal rental. So if they're looking for something under 6 months, they're probably going to pay a tax to that. And that's right around 12-13% at the moment. Those are for seasonal rentals. Most of the time you're doing annual rentals, so it won't be applicable. Okay. Last month's rent, a lot of people, you know, in their lease term, they decide to live out. You've heard this term before. I'm going to live out my last month's rent. That's self-explanatory. That means they paid it up front and they're basically not going to make another payment to the landlord because they paid it at the beginning. So that's what that is, security deposit. I want to touch on this for a second, especially for the newer agents. Security deposit and escrow deposit, two totally separate things, but they get mixed in a lot and people get confused a lot. A security deposit is the money that you're placing, okay, in the case that you mess up a property that you're renting, and the landlord would then have a claim to what's called your security deposit. What we put up on top here, okay, escrow deposit, okay, escrow is your good faith saying, I want this property and here's $1,000 in escrow to hold it. So in other words, you're applying your money to as good faith to hold that property. Okay, so I hope I've made the distinction there for you guys to understand. Security deposit is in case you destroy the place. Escrow deposit is with your offer as good faith to go into that lease and to hold the property for you. Okay. Now, pet deposit, I've been asked before, what's normal for pet deposit? I've seen 250, I've seen 300, I've seen 500, I've seen 1,000. It all depends on the landlord and the type property that they're renting. So obviously a luxury condo renting for 10,000 a month, there may be $1,000 pet deposit. Okay. Or, but if it's a normal run-of-the-mill rental, typical for South Florida between 1,500 and 3,500, I think $300 is about normal for a pet deposit. Again, that can fluctuate, but that's about normal. Okay. Cleaning fees is something that they can charge, and if they do charge a cleaning fee, it'll be under other. Okay, so keep in mind that for your client, if they're paying a cleaning fee up front, they shouldn't be paying one when they leave. I mean, it's one time. It's not like they're going to charge them to get a cleaning fee at the beginning and at the end. That typically is not the way it goes. One cleaning fee is what they got. Okay. The paragraph 2 deposit will be credited as follows. Okay, so paragraph 2, guys, again, is the escrow deposit. And what we're saying is this escrow deposit that I'm giving you, okay, is not free money. it's got to go towards something on the lease. So what we're going to put it towards is first month rent. So as you see there, it says first month rent. That just means that you've given them the first month upon acceptance of the offer. And if you go back up here, you'll see first month rent due upon acceptance of the offer. So once they sign, or I'm sorry, once your client signs, and once the landlord signs, you got a fully executed contract to lease. Now they have to give the deposit, 1 month's rent, and we're going to attribute that to the first month when we start calculating how it's going to get attributed. Okay. Now there's a little bit of a confusion here too, because in the scenario where I told you that I personally like to collect the money for Lifestyle International Realty as my commissions earned, so I'm only going to collect 500. I'm not collecting a full month. I collect 500. I send the listing agent a copy of the deposit, and I hold it as commissions earned. Then what I would do here is I would put half month rent, okay, attributed to first month's rent. So half a month of rent attributed to first month's rent. All that means is that they owe another half when you go to walk through, and that's going to be the check that they're going to give to the other listing agent, okay, for their company. So if it's Lifestyle working together with, Remax, then you're going to have a check for Remax when you go to walk through for the $500. And then you're going to have your next 2 months, as you see here, last month and security, you're going to have them with you in the walkthrough date as well. I know that this is a little hard to, understand, but you'll understand it as you get into it. Okay. Any questions there before I proceed? Any questions? Okay. So section number 6, okay, we're going to be doing the total rent that they pay in a year. If you're paying $1,000 a month, you're paying $12,000 for the year. That's what will go there. Okay, as you see there, it says sum of all months' rent. Okay. It also says that they're gonna pay monthly, and then on what day they're gonna pay, and then the amount that they're gonna pay every month is $1,000. Let's say, for example, to keep it simple. If you have a client that says, "Hey, I really want this property. I want to pay everything in full," so that they take my offer, and I'm gonna pay all $12,000 right now for the year. Well, then you're gonna check off paid in full, and then the amount that they're paying. Okay, the date and the amount right there. All right, pretty easy there. Section number 7 is whether pets are permitted and prohibited. If it's permitted, then it's as described there, meaning, permitted 25-pound dog, whatever it is, and it's okay by the landlord. Smoking, whether it's prohibited or permitted, in most instances, I usually check off prohibited for smoking. But if there's a person that says, I need to smoke and whatever, and you work that out with the landlord, then that's on them. Okay. We're moving to the second page. We're going to start off with number 9, utilities. Utilities, it says here, tenant will pay for all utility service during the lease term. Connection charges and deposits for activating existing utility connections to the property except for, and it says provided by condominium. What this means is that anything that the landlord is including in the rent, okay, so if they're including cable, if they're including water, then you're going to be putting that there. Okay, so anything that's provided by landlord. I know it says condominium there because typically condos, they give some amenities, but it's also anything included, okay, from the landlord side. All right. Number 10, maintenance. Landlord will be responsible for maintenance and repair of the property, except for, I usually put AC filters being changed by the tenant. I think that's, like something simple that I always think that a tenant should be able to do. And do you really want the landlord walking in once a month to just change an AC filter? So I usually just put AC filter there. Most of the repairs you'll see will be more detailed in the actual lease. Keep an eye on that because there's listing agents and landlords out there that they try to be slick, and they'll say, hey, all of this is responsibility of the tenant, and it's like everything, AC, roof, all this stuff, and you're like, wait a minute, it's just a tenant. That's the landlord's responsibility. So keep an eye out for that when the lease arrives and you receive it and start reviewing it. Association approval. Okay. Basically, when the agreement gets signed by both sides, the contract to lease, and you've already gotten the escrow deposit, you want to make sure that they apply for the association like ASAP if there's an association. Do not sit on this process. Because as we know, associations can take up to 30 days, but there's some that might take a week, 2 weeks. And if you want to get your client in fast, just don't wait on this. Like get it done ASAP. So have them apply right away. If your client applies for an HOA and does not get approved, okay, then their escrow deposit will come back to them. Okay, they're not approved by the association. So it'd be very hard for a landlord to make a claim on a deposit when the association didn't approve them. Okay, I've never seen it. Let me knock on wood. That's not wood. Never seen it, but tenant gets denied. That's basically a green light that they're gonna get their deposit back. Okay, and that's typical in this market. Additional terms, notice to landlord and tenant. It says you or your attorney must make amendments to the lease form. The lease form is obviously the full lease. So if there's additional terms to be added, there you can add it to the full lease. I don't think that there's much that the lease doesn't cover. It's very detailed, so I don't think you're even gonna have to mess with that. Background credit reference check. If the landlord determines that the tenant's background credit or reference check is not acceptable, landlord may terminate this contract by refunding the deposit to the tenant. Thereupon, the parties will be released from all obligations under this contract. I've been asked, Marco, the credit check comes back and the landlord, initially asked for a 700. My client has, a 680. Can he now say he doesn't want the tenant? Yes, he can, because it was clearly stated that he wanted a tenant and with at least a minimum 700 credit score. Maybe it's because the association wants it that way, or maybe it's because the landlord themselves want it that way. So yeah, they can deny your tenant the property. Okay, another question. Well, the background check came back and they had nothing, maybe a misdemeanor or something, that was very, very minimal, but now the landlord doesn't want to rent him the property. Can the landlord back out? Yeah, the landlord can back out. Okay. Now, is it going to be where the background check comes back clean and then landlord says, I don't want to rent it to him anymore. I don't like the background check. Well, no, because there's no substance there. There's nothing for him to go back on. So in that case, they can't do that. So that's a little bit on section 13. Doesn't happen a whole lot. I think that most places, the agents involved, they try to get ahead of a lot of things. So they work things out before it even gets to a point where the landlord or tenant sees it for the first time. So that being said, be communicative with your listing agent, follow up, ask the questions. If you know your tenant has an issue, don't try not to like divulge it. Like speak to them and be honest and say, look, these are great people. This is what they have holding them back. I'd love for you to meet them at the property. If you guys like the way, they are, then maybe you guys would be open to moving forward with us. And that could be in the case of a bad credit check or anything like that. So just have good communication with the other side. I think that's the best way to go with this. I find that most people that close are just people that are very straightforward with what they need to get done. Failure to perform. If the tenant fails to perform on any of the promises of this contract, the deposit paid by the tenant may be retained by or for the account of the landlord as agreed upon in liquidated damages, consideration for the execution of this contract, and in full settlement of any claims. And the parties will be released from all obligations under this contract. If landlord fails to perform any of the promises of this contract, tenant may elect to receive a refund of the deposit paid without waiving any action for damages resulting from the landlord's breach. Basically, this is a binding contract, okay? So I know that especially when market rents are high and hot, we go and we show a client 3 or 4 properties to rent, and we may throw 3 or 4 of these contract to leases out there to try to lock them into a contract to lease. My advice, strong advice, is once you get one that's executed and that's accepted, please back off on the other ones. Like send the agents on those other ones saying, hey, I really appreciate your time, but we just got a house accepted or an offer accepted, and we're gonna try to go move in that direction. Do not have two contract to leases signed and, you know, waiting on a third one. That's gonna be a recipe for disaster for sure. So you get one accepted, work on the one, okay? There's nothing wrong with telling the other person that you showed the property for that, hey, we got one accepted, we'd love to keep yours, you know, in backup in case that this one falls through. Are you okay with that? Yeah, sure, just let me know. Just do it that way, guys, because you don't want to have a situation where now your tenant has to basically has to go ahead and perform on both of these contracts. Okay. Any questions? Any questions at all? That basically took us all the way to the end of this. Everything from here is just tenant signatures, addresses, and self-explanatory sections. So is there any questions as far as the contract to lease is concerned? I'm hoping that you guys picked up some nuggets with it and learned a little bit with it. Anything at all? And you guys can still hear me, right? I haven't checked in a while.
Oh, excuse me, can you hear me, Marco?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, it's Reynaldo. How are you?
Hi, how you doing?
So quick question, because I'm new on this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give this contract to the other realtor, let's say that to the one that has the contract,
Yeah.
so he's gonna fill this information.
You're filling out all of this information. The only signatures that are going to be required is your client. So once your client signs it, you're then going to send it as a PDF to the other agent. You're not sending signature requests to the other agent for their client to sign. You're only doing your side. So when she receives it as a PDF or he on the other side, then they put it into their system and they add their signatures for their client. So I think that's something that some people ask sometimes too, is okay, I get it filled out. Do I send signature requests to the owner and to the tenant? No, it's only to your client.
Okay.
Yep,
Thank
good question. Anyone else? So we got a good handle on this, guys? You feel like you got a good handle on it? We're ready to do this? All right. Okay, I'm gonna drop in the chat a second. Hold on. I'm gonna drop in. Let me stop the share. I'm gonna go to the chat. I'm gonna put my my contact information. And please lock it in the case that you need anything or have any questions. You're in the middle of a lease or of a rental and you have a question, I'd be more than happy to help you. I'm located in the West Palm branch. I probably should have started off with that. And actually, this is the first training that I do in the West Palm branch because we're just got the office going. So I'm super excited to be here today and to do a training out of here. Finally, it's been about 9 months since we've had an office. So very excited. Again, if you guys need anything, you've got my contact information. Feel free to reach out. Okay. If there are no other questions, that's gonna resume our training for today or end our training for today, I should say. And if you think of anything later, feel free to text me as well. That's fine. Or call me. All right, guys. Thank you for joining today. I really appreciate it. Bye.